Hello YouTube, how's everyone doing? It's Professional here. So today I have another top 5 video for you guys, and this is a top 5 that I've wanted to make for some time. And if you guys enjoy this video, please drop a like on it. It'll help me make more top 5s, and I want to make more unique ones like this because a lot of people have been requesting them. Now in today's top 5, this one is top 5 PlayStation games that deserve a reboot or a remake. Now the PlayStation 5 is going to be coming out in a few months, and these are 5 games that I would really like to see come out on it. Now, I'm not a big fan of exclusives. I think everybody should be able to play every game, no matter the console, but these are 5 games that were on the original PlayStation 1, 2, 3, and 4, and these games haven't had a new game for some time, and they hold a very special place in my heart. I've played all of these games, and I really believe that if these games were remade or reboot, they would be very successful, and a lot of new players would enjoy them. So I hope that you guys enjoy this one. Top 5 PlayStation games that deserve a reboot or a remake. Starting off at number 5, we have the original Siphon Filter Trilogy.
Okay, got it. Out. She's at the second hangar. Vulcan, take the second squad and get her. First squad, get Logan on those discs. UN forces are on their way and we have to be finished before they get here.
Concussion grenades only. We need her alive.
Ah, Siphon Filter. This game was such a huge part of my childhood, and the oldest game on this list. The original Trilogy was on the PlayStation 1 with Siphon Filter 1, 2, and 3, and when I first played Siphon Filter 2, I was around 5 years old, and I had no idea what I was doing. I died a bunch of times, but I still loved it. This was my first third-person shooter, and when I was around 6 or 7, I completed all 3 games, and I found a new appreciation for this game after so many years. Recently, I came across a really cool channel called D-Factor Long Plays, which I'll link down below, and he did an entire walkthrough on Siphon Filter 1, 2, and 3, and I loved his walkthrough so much that I watched all 3 videos, and they were the entire game. The guy did a really good job playing through the game. Now, what is Siphon Filter? Everyone knows who Sam Fisher is in Splinter Cell, and everyone knows who Snake is in Metal Gear Solid, but what if I told you Gabriel Logan, the main character in Siphon Filter, is their equal? Siphon Filter first launched in 1999 on the PlayStation 1, and the story was you playing as Gabe Logan, who was the best agent in a government group called the Agency. Logan was tasked with stopping an evil terrorist named Romer, who plotted attacks all over the world and used a deadly virus called Siphon Filter, which can target certain people but leave others unharmed. Near the end of the game, Logan finds out that the Agency has been working with Romer in the first place, and allowed him to use the virus to test it on people, but Romer went rogue, trying to launch a nuclear missile. In the second game, Logan leaves the Agency and tries to expose them and their evil agenda. The Agency is planning on selling the virus to an evil general in China, who is in the Heilong province, who wants to use it on the people there. However, if this game got remade, I could completely see China banning it, as the Chinese government censors everything like crazy.
Tensions between the U.S. and People's Republic of China are on the rise as the administration answers allegations that it allowed sensitive U.S. technologies to be sold to a dissident group in Heilongjiang.
Logan gets shot down over Colorado and has to fight his way off the Rocky Mountains against Agency Special Forces, and this is some of the best parts of the game. And he fights off the mountain and he tries to take the Agency down. You play as him and his former Agency partner Leon, as well as his friend Teresa and Mujabi in the second and third game. The third game focuses on Gabe testifying to Congress and trying to find the mastermind behind the Siphon Filter plot. And what I loved about these games was the tactical element of them. They had all different kinds of missions, from shootouts in New York City, to fighting through really tall mountains in Colorado, to gulags in Russia, and more. It was one of the earliest stealth games, and you really had to think about how to get through certain sections. It had really cool bosses like Anton Gurdu and others.
I hope Romer's paying you enough to die for him.
Gabriel Logan, always the optimist. Look around, Logan. This hall contains a mosaic depicting the entire history of your country's wars and aggression. We are about to make an addition to it.
I don't think so, Gurdu. It ends here.
The final boss in Siphon Filter 2 additionally was completely armored, and as a kid, I could not figure out how to kill him as his armor blocked every shot. Then I realized that if you took a shotgun and hit him every time, it would push him back until you push him into the helicopter blades. These games had so much to them, and while there were other games on the PS2 and PSP afterwards, the original trilogy deserves a good remake, something like Resident Evil 2 or 3. I think it should be a remake instead of a reboot, because the whole story was the conspiracy about the virus, and if they made a reboot with a new story, it would be a new conspiracy all over again. The developer of this game, they were 589 Studios, which they still exist today. They are called Ben Studios, and their most recent game was Days Gone. And you had a developer on Twitter that actually talked about Siphon Filter last year, so it's entirely possible that this game could be remade. And the game additionally did have a split-screen multiplayer, which was very popular, and some people are still playing it 20 years later, and I was able to find YouTube videos of it. So if they remade multiplayer as well, it would help promote it. And overall, Siphon Filter, it was an amazing series and a great nostalgic part of my childhood, and it deserves a remake 100%. And one final thing, the menu in Siphon Filter, oh my god, the menu. The menu was so nostalgic. It was such a typical 1990s menu, but I loved it so much, and I loved the background music in this game. Next at number 4, we have Mag.
You have been downtrodden. You have been abandoned. Now is your time to rise up out of the oppressed, to emerge from the shadows. Ignite the thunder of freedom. Now you fight for yourself, for riches, for honor, for the brotherhood.
The ATAC 2000 is the latest in assault rifle technology, capable of up to 800 rounds. Training completed. Congratulations, operative.
Join these ranks to uphold the Millennium Accord. Improvise, adapt, overcome.
Time to lock and load, boys. We fight with the best now. Let's do this.
Ah, the memories of Mag, how much I love this game. I was 16 when this game first came out, and I played this game almost every day after high school. So what was Mag? Mag was a 256-player, multiplayer-only game on the PS3. That's right, 256 players. That's what made this game far different than many other multiplayer games. That's 128-player versus 128-player multiplayer combat. That was absolutely insane, especially for the PS3 at the time. The story in Mag takes place in the future, in 2025, in which modern military cease to exist, and they are replaced by giant private military contractors, also known as mercenaries. Governments across the world hire these mercenary corporations in order to protect their interests, mostly oil. And in the game, there is 3 main mercenary factions. There is Valor, which is a North American faction, comprised mostly of Mexico, Canada, and the US, and I believe Britain is also part of them. And then we have Raven, which is a Western European faction that is comprised mostly of Spain, France, Germany, and Austria. And then lastly, we have the faction I played as, Sphere, which is comprised of Russia, Eastern Europe, Central Asia, the Middle East, and China. It was kind of a Soviet-themed faction. And each faction had their own theme to it. They had their own weapons, their own uniforms. In this game, unlike in other multiplayer games, you would choose what faction you pledge allegiance to, and then you would always fight for that faction. Later on, you could switch factions if you want, but I liked that you could pick one faction, you could join that faction with your friends, and you can play. The most popular mode in the game was Acquisition. There was all other smaller scale modes, but Acquisition was the most popular mode, and that was the 128 versus 128 player mode, in which one faction would attack another faction's base, like for instance Sphere attacking Valor's oil base in Alaska, and this would involve the attacking faction destroying a number of defenses, taking land, and then stealing 2 APCs and exiting the area. The defenders would have to try to stop them. And at the end of each week, the leaderboards would determine which faction was winning the war and which faction scored the most amount of points. It was really fun fighting for your faction, knowing that you were helping your faction win by the end of the week. The game was a lot of fun. Unfortunately, and this is the saddest thing about this game, is that every game on this list I can play whenever I want. Mag, I can't play anymore. Why? The servers have been shut down since 2014. And what doesn't help is that the developer of this game, Zipper Interactive, they also shut down. So the chances of Mag having a reboot is very slim. Hopefully Sony reconsiders this, but one crazy thing is I found that some retailers, especially online, are still selling Mag, which is ridiculous considering that the game cannot be played. The servers have been shut down and it's multiplayer only. So why are some retailers still selling it? But otherwise, this was a great game. It was really amazing, and a lot of people missed out on it when it first came out. Hopefully, Sony reconsiders this game and gives this game a good reboot. Imagine this game on the PS5 with modern graphics and maybe even more players than 256. That would be absolutely crazy. Number 3 is a new Killzone game.
Our enemies murdered a great man. Skalavazari, our nation's father. Today, we remember the hope he gave us, the purpose he gave us, the vision he gave us. A vision in which the Helghast people reclaim their rightful place in this universe. Years from now, we will tell our children of this day. The day his vision became our reality!
The Killzone games were some of Sony's best exclusives, but we haven't had a new Killzone game in 7 years, which I'm really hoping that this series is not dead, because after the ending in Shadowfall, there's still a lot of things that have to be answered, as well as, what's going to happen next between the Helghast and the Vectans. So the Killzone games, these take place in the 24th century, and the story's really long. I could spend like an hour explaining the whole story, but basically to sum it up, this corporation called the Helghan Corporation had colonized planets in a new system, the Alpha Centauri system, and they found 2 planets, one with a habitable environment similar to Earth, which they named Vecta, the other planet with a very uninhabitable environment they named Helghan. Now, they settled on Vecta, and this corporation became more and more powerful and started taxing shipping from Earth. Earth did not like this and didn't like their dependence so much on the Helghan Corporation that they actually launched an invasion of the planet. And the Helghan Corporation lost to Earth, and most of the people from the Helghan Corporation were exiled to the planet of Helghan. And over the course of 100 years, the people that lived on that planet, a huge percentage of them died due to the toxic atmosphere of Helghan, but a large amount of them also mutated and became the Helghast, a new group of people in which you have the iconic enemies with gas masks and glowing eyes. Now, they seek revenge on Vecta, and they became a regime, and the Helghast regime is based on numerous dictatorships throughout human history, ranging from fascist dictatorships in Germany and Italy to the Soviet Union, as well as some similarities to the North Korean regime. And the Helghast invaded Vecta in Killzone 1, they were repelled. Then in Killzone 2, Helghan was invaded, in which their emperor was killed. In Killzone 3, the Helghast tried to launch a counter-invasion in which the main characters ended up nuking the entire planet, so the entire planet of Helghan became even more uninhabitable. And because of this, you had a kind of a Berlin Wall theme in the next game, in which the Helghast and the Vectans were divided on Vecta, and you had this huge wall between them. I thought that Shadowfall personally had the best story in the game, in which you were playing as Kellen, a special ISA agent who lost his father to the Helghast occupation on his side of Vecta. And throughout the story, Kellen really dislikes the Helghast, but then comes to a realization that there's extremists on both sides who want a war, and civilians on both the Helghast and the Vectan side are gonna be destroyed by this terrible war. And he works with Emperor Visari's granddaughter of the Helghast, Echo, in order to try to prevent that war. And we also find out that Echo is half Vectan and half Helghast, but that's never fully explained through the game. And at the end of the game, Echo manages to prevent the war by assassinating Sinclair, the extremist leader on the Vectan side, but we don't really have a true ending to the Killzone games after this, and that Berlin Wall still remains between the two. I did like that atmosphere to it. The Killzone games have had traditionally, first-person shooters in them. They've been futuristic style, obviously. It's one of the few futuristic games that I like. Like the story in these games, good graphics, multiplayer that was also available there, but I liked it primarily for the story. So hopefully that Sony takes a look at this and decides to do a sequel to Shadowfall, because we deserve another game. And why don't they do it where we can play as Echo in the next game? We can continue her story from where we left off in Shadowfall. So hopefully Sony really reconsiders the Killzone series, and Guerrilla Games, the studios that makes Killzone, they're still around. So they could definitely remake this series whenever they want. They can make a sequel, they can make a reboot, but hopefully it is a sequel to Shadowfall. Number 2, we have a new Jak and Daxter game.
I swear, that's the last time I ever touch any stupid precursor crap! So there we were. Weapons bristling under rumbling hoods.
You talking to me?
Yeah, you talking to him?
I've got you now. Hang on, Dax. It's gonna be close.
Jack and I are world famous!
Jak and Daxter is one of the most iconic PlayStation exclusives of all time. And Jak and Daxter, the great thing about this series is that this is a series that both adults and kids love. So no matter what age you are, you're going to love this series. And if I played these games as a kid, and if they made another one, I would buy it 100%. So what is Jak and Daxter? Jak and Daxter came out originally in 2001 with Jak and Daxter, the precursor Legacy. Then we had Jak 2, Jak 3. These games were all released on the PS2. And then we had Jak X Combat Racing. Then we had 2 PSP titles, including Daxter and Jak and Daxter The Lost Frontier. Jak and Daxter is mostly an open-world game, and it's set in a fictional world in which an ancient race of beings known as the Precursors were responsible for a lot of the ruins built around the world, as well as precursor artifacts, and they're also responsible for the creation of Eco, which Eco is this magical energy fuel supply used in the Jak and Daxter series. And there's different type of Eco, ranging from light Eco to yellow Eco, red Eco, blue Eco, green Eco, and each Eco has a sage. There is also dark Eco, which is a more corrupted version of Eco and an unstable version of it. So the game starts out with Jak and his best friend Daxter traveling to Misty Island to spy on the Lurkers, which are dark Eco-infused creatures. And they find out that the Lurkers are planning on attacking their village. They're spotted as they try to leave Misty Island, and Jak fights a big lurker creature. In this moment, his friend Daxter is knocked into a big bucket of Dark Eco, and the Dark Eco transforms him into an Ottsel, so transforms him into this little animal. And throughout the game, you try to find the Dark Eco Sage in order to cure Daxter and bring back his human form. And this game was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun exploring ruins, fighting enemies. I just had so much fun with it as a kid. Then we had Jak 2, which was released 2 years later in 2003. And Jak 2 was now a rated T game, so it went from E to rated T. It was still a game that everyone could play no matter the age, but there was a very rapid change in the environment and, you know, the types of gameplay that you had in Jak 2. You still had Jak that you controlled, you still had Daxter, which would sit on Jak's shoulder, but Jak 2 transported them into the future, and this place called Haven City. So they were trapped in the future, and Jak was captured by the evil Baron who controls the city, and he was experimented on with Dark Eco. And because of this, Jak had a completely different personality change, as well as the Dark Eco experiments caused a monstrous form from him at times. So at times, he could take on this monstrous form, which he could attack his enemies with. And Jak 2 had now guns in it, and different types of weapons. You also had futuristic flying vehicles, robots. So the environment was very different. I've never seen a game change its environment from Jak and Daxter Precursor Legacy to Jak 2, but I loved the change. It was a great change, it was a lot of fun, and I loved all the games. And then in Jak 3, Jak is exiled from Haven City into the Wasteland, and he has to try to survive. These games were just amazing, and they were just so much fun. I loved the story behind them, the environment, the characters were all great, the story involving Eco and the Precursors. It was all amazing, and the game had so many likable characters, and even the villains in these games, you like the villains as well. So they had good character development. So let's hoping that they make another Jak and Daxter game soon, and the makers of this game are Naughty Dog. So it's entirely possible that we could get a new Jak and Daxter game. But if we get a new Jak and Daxter game, I don't really want a reboot. I want a sequel instead. I want them to continue the story that was left off from the final game. So hopefully Naughty Dog considers that and they make it. And if they make a new one, I guarantee you this game is going to sell really well, because it was one of the most popular, iconic PlayStation exclusives of all time. And number 1, Socom US Navy SEALs. Socom US Navy SEALs is my favorite PlayStation exclusive of all time, and I chose this game because I feel very passionate about this series, but also because there's a lot of rumors that are going around that supposedly Socom is the next PlayStation exclusive, which I really hope is true. Normally I don't go into the whole rumor stuff, but I really hope that this is true, and if it is true, I bet a bunch of people are going to flood back here and say, guess what? Professional, next game is going to be Socom, so I really hope that that is the case. Now, what is Socom, and why do I love this series so much? Socom is a third-person shooter. In moments you can go into first person, but it's played mostly in third person, in which you play as the US Navy SEALs. And you are tasked with stopping terrorists all across the world. You're tasked with stopping terrorists, cartels, black market dealers, pirates, evil regimes. So these evil people all around the world and all continents, you are deployed on missions to stop them. And the Socom games took place around 3-4 missions where fighting one terrorist faction in one part of the world, and it would move on to the next faction. And this trend continued until Socom 3, and then in Combined Assault on the PS2, they had a fictional country called Tajikistan, which is in Central Asia, in which the evil president was the one who was masterminding all the attacks in the country. But I liked it mostly when it focused on the real world and real world locations. Now, Socom, unlike other modern military shooters, Socom was very tactical based, and while it wasn't completely an open world game, it had open maps in which you could tackle the objectives in any way that you saw fit. And some objectives you could do first, you had bonus objectives, and you had a lot of squad play. The game focused heavily on squad play, and later installments like Combined Assault had online co-op, but in the earlier installments, you could give your teammates orders, and you could give them various orders like clearing rooms, holding fire, watching an area moving to a specific location, deploying a flashbang, deploying smoke, deploying satchel charges, restraining hostages. It added so much tactical elements to the game. And I was recently watching this channel called NWG, in which I watched him play through the old Socom games with Admiral difficulty, getting a perfect score on pretty much every mission. I will link his channel down below also. The guy was really good at the game. I really liked his gameplay. Now, these games are played the best when you go tactical. As a kid, I would go crazy and I would just go Rambo trying to shoot everybody, but the games are really meant to be played tactical, and I like that realism element to them. That is when the games were the strongest. They also had online co-op, like I said earlier, in other. The multiplayer in the original ones was so much fun. You had 32-player multiplayer, you had Suppression, one mode where it was Team Deathmatch, everybody against each other, one life. There was also vehicles in later games, like in Socom 3, you had tanks, Humvees, boats, pickup trucks, machine guns on the back. They were a lot of fun. My favorite multiplayer mode was Convoy, in which a terrorist would have to drive across the map, and they would have to refuel their convoy vehicles, and the SEALs would have to try to blow them up. I had so much fun with that mode. I love the multiplayer, I love the single player, I love these games so much. Unfortunately, the series started falling apart with Socom Confrontation on the PS3. Socom Confrontation was extremely glitchy, and on top of that, they took away the single player. Why would you do that? And then in Socom 4, while they brought back the single player campaign, the game basically became a generic third-person shooter cover game. That's what it turned into. They got away from the whole tactical elements, they got away from the realism and what made Socom great, and instead it just turned into another generic third-person shooter. So hopefully, if this game gets a good reboot, they go back to their roots, tactical realism, real-world locations, good stories, interesting enemy factions that you fight, interesting stories in general, good gameplay, new vehicles, new weapons. Hopefully we have that. I really hope that Socom gets a remake, and I will do a walkthrough of Socom one day on my channel as well. But that is it for this video. If you guys enjoyed this video, please drop a like. I spent a week making this video, so I hope that you guys enjoy this one. I put a lot of effort into this one. And if you guys are new to my channel and enjoy my content, then subscribe to me, and I'll see you guys on the next one. Take care, everyone.